They told you money solves problems, and maybe for a moment it does. You fix the leak, you buy the watch, you delete the notification that kept screaming at you. For a week you breathe easier, you feel steadier, you tell yourself this is the turning point. Then a new need arrives, subtle and hungry, and the distance between what you have and what you want yawns wider again. It is never enough, no matter how much you earn. That sentence sits like a stone in the chest of modern men, small and heavy, and it makes everything taste thin. Imagine waking in a glass tower, the sun bouncing off facades, your calendar full of meetings with people who nod but do not know you. You scroll at 3 a.m., you compare unfamiliar faces, you measure yourself in the soft glow of other people's highlights. You upgraded your life, and yet the quiet in the room grew louder. The more you get, the smaller your margin for error becomes, and the louder the voice that says, get more, be more. It is a trap disguised as progress. There is a lie at the center of our time. It sounds polished and reasonable. You will be whole when you reach the next milestone, when the account crosses a certain number, when your role finally contains the respect you think you deserve. That particular lie is modern and seductive, and it uses our strengths against us. Work ethic becomes a treadmill, ambition becomes a ruler that measures your worth, and the praise you once sought from a father or mentor becomes the applause of a stranger. You learn to translate presence into productivity, connection into contracts, love into validation. The pain here is not only external, it is most painful under the skin. A man in his 20s carries pressure to ascend quickly, to outperform 1,000 peers who are also hungry. A man in his 30s carries obligations, children, debts, reputations to protect. Between the devices and the deadlines, something crucial thins out: the ability to sit with yourself. You feel hollow by abundance and crowded by options. You worry you will be exposed as someone who never knew how to be content, no matter the numbers beside your name. You feel loneliness in rooms filled with people, and you measure days in deliverables instead of moments that mattered. This modern struggle has a face, and it is familiar. It is the man who checks his phone after kissing his partner goodnight, because anxiety hits in the quiet. It is the man who has a garage full of tools but lacks the courage to confront his old mistakes. It is the man who accumulated success and then found that his heart still looks for meaning like a child looks for home. In 2025, the noise is louder than ever, with algorithms curating envy and attention economics bidding for every second of your life. The consequence is not only dissatisfaction, it is a small, persistent erosion of self. There is an old voice that answers this modern noise, a voice from the Stoics and the warriors, the teachers who held that the thing you owned should not own you. Marcus Aurelius wrote that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Seneca reminded us that it is a rough road that leads to the height of happiness, and that many are poor not because they lack money, but because they lack restraint. The samurai spoke of simplicity, that a man who trains his spirit finds the same contentment whether the world gifts him gold or takes it away. These are not moral scolds. They are careful engineers of the inner life, offering methods more than commands. Translate this for today, and the lesson is practical. Ancient wisdom does not ask you to reject success. It asks you to refuse the tyranny of more. It says, seek enough that your life can breathe, not so much that your days are spent shielding what you have. In a time of endless choices, the courage is to limit your wants, to make rules that protect your attention, to hold possessions as tools and not as trophies. The same discipline that builds a body builds a life that is resistant to the hunger of endless acquisition. Choose the few things that matter and let the rest be indifferent. Here is one clear exercise you can do right now, today. For 7 days, track not your income, but your wants. Each night, write down 3 purchases you consider that day, and next to each, write the reason you wanted it. Was it fear, avoidance, social proof, boredom, or genuine need? After the week, review the list. For each item you find driven by fear or comparison, write a small rule that prevents that impulse. For example, no purchases for entertainment after 9 p.m., or wait 48 hours before any non-essential buy over a set amount. Then practice saying no to one craving each day. This is a muscle, a slow forging of preference and presence. Not flashy, but it works. Do not mistake this practice for asceticism that punishes pleasure. It is the opposite. You are learning to make pleasure deliberate and meaningful. When you choose intentionally, the pleasures you keep become thicker, sweeter, less adulterated by guilt or distraction. The payoff is simple. You will sleep with less noise, you will spend time with fewer interruptions, and you will return to relationships that notice you. The world will still shout for more, but you will have trained your inner ear to hear what matters. Remember this in the quiet before you fall asleep, and say it out loud if you must. It is never enough, and that is true, but I will not let that sentence define me. Let it be a reminder that desire is natural, and hunger is fuel, but not the map for a whole life. Make decisions that honor the man you are becoming, not only the man you imagine others expect. The truth is blunt and simple. You can make more money and still be restless. You can buy status and still feel small. You can collect awards and still return home to the same empty room if you never learn to steward your wants. The old teachers did not ask us to reject the world. They asked us to rule our inner kingdom. Practice that rule in small ways today, and the next time wealth whispers that you are not enough, you will answer from a place of calm, not from a collapse of appetite. Breathe, choose, and remember, the work of a man is not to out-earn his rest, but to earn his peace. They tell you discipline is boring. They make it sound like a gray room of denial, and so you bargain for shortcuts, hacks, and quick dopamine. The lie is neat, modern, and very loud. You can optimize your way to a whole life. Just by the course, follow the funnel, hack your habits, and everything will be better. The truth they leave out is this: consistency is lonely, progress is incremental, and mastery asks for patience and surrender. It is never enough to chase results. What matters is the work you are willing to live with day after day. Picture the morning ritual reduced to a checklist, a man moving through his apps like a production line, ticking boxes without ever noticing the light on the floor. He listens to another productivity podcast while checking messages from people who think availability equals loyalty. He reads 7 summaries instead of 1 book. He chases speed because speed promises rescue. He believes momentum is something external that can be purchased by better tools or sharper routines, and yet his inner life feels untended. The problem is not the plan. It is the heart that refuses to be patient long enough to see a plan mature into habit and habit into character. In 2025, the particular pain is disguised as opportunity. You are flooded with frameworks that promise exponential gains, overnight transformations, and algorithmic shortcuts to visibility. Every notification suggests someone else is doing more with less sleep, and the comparison eats at the foundation. Men between 20 and 40 are told the stakes are immediate, decisions must be fast, and delay is failure. So you race, you optimize, you cut corners, and you forget that the most durable victories are not flashy, they are invisible. They are the small, repeatable choices that form the interior architecture of a life. That kind of pressure shows up as restlessness, as a boredom that dresses itself in ambition. It shows up as a man leaving the coffee shop with a plan but no patience, a man who starts a program and quits at the first plateau, a man who can name 3 disciplines but practices none consistently. Over time, this pattern builds a mind that expects novelty over depth, speed over skill, traction over 10 years of steady friction. The consequence is not only mediocre outcomes, it is a splintered identity, a sense that you have many beginnings and few continuations. You feel like a craftsman without hours, an athlete who never trains through the winter, a lover who does not show up for the quiet seasons. Listen to the philosophers who trained their will before they trained their fortune. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. This is a reminder that our perception shapes the endurance we bring to repetition. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from the discipline to choose how you respond, not from the absence of difficulty. The samurai taught that mastery is born in the repetition of small acts until they become unshakable. These voices do not romanticize suffering. They orient suffering as the material of virtue. They say, if you want a life that lasts, learn to love the grind as the vessel that carries meaning. Now translate that into your day in a way that fits the noise and demands of our time. Ancient teachers are not asking you to hide from technology. They are asking you to learn stewardship. Treat your attention like currency, not like collateral. Commit to rules that protect cadence, not only outcome. The philosophy is simple. Be relentless about the smallest things, because the smallest things compound into who you become. Show up to your craft for the boring days, practice when results are invisible, and let identity form around process, not praise. Here is a single, practical regimen to begin today. Choose one domain of life where you want true improvement. It can be fitness, reading, writing, craft, or relationship. For 90 days, do one focused, repeatable practice for that domain every day. Only one practice. Make it small enough that you cannot excuse yourself from it. large enough that it scales when you are ready. Examples: write 300 words a day on a topic that scares you. Not polishing, just practice. 5 push-ups for every hour you sit for long stretches. Read 12 pages each morning before screens. Call one person a week with no agenda. Track it publicly or in a notebook, and refuse to skip more than one day in a row. If you skip, write why. If you're tempted to add another practice, resist until the 90 days end. This exercise builds what nothing else builds: a rhythm. Rhythm is the scaffolding for excellence. Rhythm makes you immune to the allure of every new trick because you have a system that yields its own evidence. Over 90 days, the small act accumulates into confidence, and confidence is the quiet rebuke to every borrowed system that promised you results without the cost. When the world offers you a shortcut, you will remember the slow proof of your own labor and say no. This regimen trains endurance, and endurance trains character. Do not confuse this with punitive discipline that chokes life of joy. The point is freedom, the sort of freedom that comes when your life is not dictated by the latest market, the latest trend, or the latest notification. The point is to make your days coherent, to own a territory of focus that no advertisement can sell you out of. You will find that by narrowing your field, your appreciation for each day increases. Depth breeds delight, not deprivation. Close with this, a short reminder to anchor in the middle of the storm. Repeat it when doubt rises. Say it before you open another tab. I will do the small thing I have set for myself, no matter how boring, because my life is built on practice. Let that be your private vow, said in the morning mirror, or typed into your phone, or whispered into the dark. Keep your promise to yourself, even when nobody notices. In the end, the real victory is not a flashy result. It is the quiet accumulation of ordinary actions done with purpose. The men who endure are not those who chased every hack. They are those who kept their ritual when the spotlight left. Build a life that is unsexy and therefore unbreakable. Invest in a repetition that becomes your backbone. And when the noise claims that it is never enough, answer with a practiced calm that knows patience makes a man. Breathe, return to the small work, and carry on. You were taught to be strong, to shoulder burdens silently, to measure success by what you possess and how you perform, and so you learn to hide the parts of you that feel fragile. The lie is clean and convincing. Strength is silence. Vulnerability is weakness. It fits into suits, into boardrooms, into the tidy narratives that get shared on feeds. But silence is a cost, and the ledger always comes due. It is never enough to earn validation from strangers if the people who know your real voice cannot recognize you. Picture a man who has learned to win, who knows how to negotiate, who can close deals and command attention in rooms of mirrors. He posts curated wins, he manages impressions, he avoids messy truth because messy truth threatens his brand. He has followers and acquaintances, but the nights feel like corridors. The modern machinery of connection gives us networks and robs us of neighbors. It offers likes and subtracts meaning. In 2025, the paradox is sharp. Men are more diagnosed with anxiety and depression, while metrics of wealth and influence rise. The smartphone amplifies applause and hides the silence that follows applause. You can be celebrated by a crowd and still return to a quiet house and feel unknown. The pain is precise and persistent. You want to be seen in a way that does not require you to perform. You want someone to know your story without your having to trim it for public consumption. Yet you also fear that being known will reveal wounds that are hard to repair. So you cultivate a surface life that looks complete while the inner life leaks. You might marry your work because it is safer than intimacy, or you might collect experiences to distract from the fear of being ordinary. Either way, the result is loneliness disguised as busyness. The cost is not only emotional, it is practical, because relationships are the infrastructure of a man who lasts. Without them, triumphs feel brittle and setbacks feel catastrophic. There is an older teaching that confronts this modern isolation directly. Aristotle declared that man is by nature a social animal, not to entangle you in dependency, but to remind you that flourishing is communal. The Stoics encouraged honest self-inquiry and deliberate companionship, suggesting that a life examined in isolation is a life half-lived. The samurai kept small circles, bonds forged in ritual and shared hardship, because they knew strength is tested by loyal friends. Lao Tzu taught that love gives courage, and courage allows a man to lower his defenses without collapse. These teachers did not preach sentimentality. They mapped a practical architecture. Noble solitude practiced with the readiness to connect, courage to show weakness, and choosing companions who return truth, not flattery. Translated for today, the lesson is blunt. Connection cannot be outsourced to apps, it cannot be simulated with perfectly curated messages, and it will not arrive as a side effect of wealth. You must invest attention and time into relationships the same way you invest capital into a business. You must practice the skill of presence, the courage to speak honestly, the discipline to create spaces where deeper conversation is possible. Wealth can fund experiences, it cannot produce genuine belonging. The old adjustment for modern life is this: build small rituals that cultivate trust, schedule vulnerability like a meeting, and choose a few people to carry your quiet burdens. Here is a concrete exercise you can do starting today, a 7-day practice that rewires how you approach closeness. Day 1, reach out to someone you trust and ask for 30 minutes. No phones, no interruptions, tell them you need to talk and that you will listen to. Day 2, write a short letter to a friend or mentor, not for social media, but an honest note about something you have been avoiding. Day 3, identify one area where you have been performing rather than speaking, and confess it aloud to a person who matters. Use plain language. Don't try to fix it right away. Just name it. Day 4, set a boundary that preserves real time with someone, for example, a weekly dinner or a walk without devices. Day 5, practice the rule of 2 minutes of silence before answering a text or a call, allowing presence to arrive instead of reactive performance. Day 6, ask for feedback from someone you respect and receive it without defending. Day 7, reflect privately and write what changed in 3 sentences, then share 1 sentence of that reflection with a person you trusted on day 1. The point of the exercise is not dramatic confession, it is calibrated courage. It builds a different muscle than the muscle you use to negotiate deals. It is the muscle that learns to tolerate being known. Over a week, you will feel the awkwardness, the fear, the relief, and the small rewards of reciprocity. If someone fails to respond with reciprocity, you have learned something valuable about boundary setting and about who deserves your trust. That knowledge is itself a kind of wealth. Do not mistake this practice for weakness. It is a strategic recalibration. Vulnerability clears fog, it locates allies, and it eases the cost of every future victory because you no longer carry everything alone. A man accustomed to being seen honestly can also carry more responsibility because his shoulders are supported. Being known does not reduce your autonomy, it increases your capacity to act without brittle insecurity. Close with this, a short, firm line to repeat when solitude feels heavy. Say it often. I will not let silence be my trophy. I will let truth be my measure. Keep that phrase in your pocket, speak it in the mirror, or send it to a friend if you must. In the end, earning more cannot replace being known, and accumulation of assets will never substitute for honest company. The ancient teachers were clear. A life well lived is a shared life, built on small rituals of truth and courage. Practice showing up, practice asking for help, practice saying what you feel before you numb it with work. When wealth whispers, it will make you whole. Answer with a steadier voice, I will make room for people. I will build courage to be real, and I will measure my life not only by what I have, but by who walks with me through the nights. Breathe, reach out, and remember that belonging is a craft you can build. Modern ambition has a strange aftertaste. You can be winning on paper and losing in your chest at the same time. You can climb and feel smaller, upgrade and feel emptier, accumulate advantages, and still wake with the sense that your life is not being used, only spent. The cultural script says growth is always good, more is always progress, speed is always virtuous. But if you look closely, you will see a quiet truth beneath the noise. Growth without direction is drift dressed as momentum. It is never enough to simply move. Men need a direction worthy of their stamina. Look at the men who burn out not from failure, but from misalignment. They do not fall because they lacked effort. They fall because they never paused to ask whether their ladder was against the right wall. They sprint into careers chosen by inertia or pressure, pouring years into a future they never examined. They chase the job that signals prestige, the income that quiets guilt, the move that impressed parents or rivals or invisible critics. Then at 29 or 36 or 41, they look around and feel the vertigo of having built a life they do not want to live in. That dizziness is not laziness. It is your soul pulling the emergency brake. This pain is heavier in 2025 because choice has become infinite. Infinite careers, infinite paths, infinite side hustles, infinite identities you could become if you just work harder and slept less. With infinite choice comes infinite self-doubt, and so men drown not in scarcity, but in possibility. You second-guess every step, you fear regret more than failure, You keep pivoting, hoping clarity will greet you on the next attempt. Meanwhile, the years continue their quiet theft. The cost of indefinite wandering is not merely lost income, it is the erosion of conviction. A man without direction cannot feel his own spine. The ancients wrestled with this in fewer words, but with more spine. Seneca warned that a man who does not know to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. The samurai train not for outcomes, but for alignment with a code, choosing paths that sharpen character rather than inflated ego. The Stoics placed aim above ambition, asking not what you can acquire, but who you become through pursuit. Even Eastern monks taught that a life without telos, without orientation towards something worthy, dissolves into anxiety. They did not preach aimlessness as freedom. They taught that chosen constraints create meaning. Translate this for the present age, and the lesson is surgical. Do not optimize your life until you have first oriented it. Do not seek efficiency before you decide what deserves your efficiency. A man should know what he is willing to trade years for. Without a telos, you will chase applause in rooms that do not matter, master skills you never needed, and neglect the exact work you were built to do. Direction is not certainty. It is consent to pursue one thing long enough for mastery and meaning to emerge. Here is one actionable intervention you can begin today: the 3 hard questions draft. Take a page and write 3 questions at the top. 1. What am I unwilling to sacrifice, even for success? 2. What pain am I willing to endure for 10 years? 3. If I died doing my current path, would I consider the fight worthy? Then write in censored answers without editing for intelligence or aesthetics. Put the page away in a drawer. Do this again in 7 days, fresh page. Do it again in 30 days. On day 30, lay all 3 pages side by side. The common sentences across drafts are your compass. Everything that contradicts them is noise. This practice works because clarity is not an epiphany. It is the residue of repeated honesty. You are not trying to find a perfect direction. You are shrinking the fog. With each repetition, you see what you keep returning to in secret. That recurring desire, even if inconvenient, even if smaller than what society calls ambitious, is the closest thing you have to truth. Once you see the through line, you can begin aligning your calendar, your peers, your rituals, and your risk-taking to reflect it. That is how men grow with spine instead of velocity. Do not mistake direction for rigidity. You can change your aim when reality teaches you, but you must not live without one. Direction gives suffering a reason, turns monotony into training, and converts time from something you endure into something you spend on purpose. The moment you fix your aim, even provisionally, your exhaustion becomes meaningful instead of corrosive. A tired man with a mission is alive. A comfortable man without one is already fading. Close with this sentence, repeat it when you feel scattered. I choose the weight that is worthy of me. You do not have to know every mile of the road. You only need to know the hill you are willing to die on. Say it aloud if you must. In the end, you can make more, collect more, and still feel the ache of misalignment. The quieter courage is not to chase faster, but to choose narrower. Choose a direction deliberately, then give it the dignity of sustained effort. When the world tells you that it is never enough, let your answer be quiet and unshaken. It is enough when it is aligned. Breathe, narrow your aim, and begin again with intention. There is a moment every man meets if he lives honestly long enough, the moment where success stops intoxicating and begins exposing him. Once your basic needs are met and you have tasted progress, the question shifts from how do I get more to why does more not feel like enough? This is the fracture line modern men rarely admit aloud. We think adding quantity will eventually convert into quality of life. But the math is broken. It is never enough to accumulate without also confronting who you are in the quiet between accomplishments. Picture a man who once burned for survival and now lives above the threshold he prayed for. The urgency that once made him heroic has evaporated. Now he wakes into a softer problem, not poverty, but pointlessness. He opens his phone before he opens his blinds. He sees a new benchmark, a new rival, a new standard, and so his nervous system restarts the pursuit not because he needs to, but because he does not know who he is without pursuit. This is the modern addiction, not money, but momentum. We are terrified of stillness because stillness reveals the exact inventory of our inner life. The pain of this era is subtle but lethal. Men are not dying of starvation. They are dying of misused abundance. They work under lights until their eyes burn not because they must, but because they fear the psychological withdrawal that begins when they stop. They fill silence with noise because silence exposes self-disgust, regret, longing, and unprocessed loss. They search for meaning and status because they have not learned how to generate meaning from character. The greatest famine of our time is not resources, it is interior strength. Ancient voices spoke to this unflinchingly. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, not with the color of its trophies. Epictetus said no man is free who is not master of himself. The samurai trained their mind to meet death daily, so they would not live like ghosts clinging to comfort. The desert fathers withdrew from noise not to escape life, but to build a self that could re-enter life uncorrupted. None of these voices warned against wealth. They warned against wealth without inner weight. Rewritten for the present age, the lesson is this: once you cross the survival threshold, the work shifts from extraction to integration. You no longer measure success by what you acquire, but by whether you have become a man who can hold success without being hollowed by it. The modern game rewards visibility. The ancient game rewards integrity. If you do not consciously switch games after your basic ascent, you will spend the rest of your life increasing the scale of a problem you never solved. Here is an actionable exercise for this exact inflection point: the 1-hour audit. For 7 consecutive evenings, sit in a silent room without screens for exactly 1 hour. Set a clock, no music, no note-taking, just sit. While you sit, observe what rises. The first 15 minutes will be agitation. The next 15 will be memory and mental debris. Somewhere after minute 30, you will meet the truth you keep outrunning. At the end of each hour, write a single sentence about what you discovered. At the end of 7 days, read the 7 sentences. Those sentences are the seams where work on the inner life must begin. This exercise is brutal because the hour strips away anesthesia. It reveals unlived decisions, unspoken apologies, undealt grief, and desires you outlawed to fit an identity. Good. That exposure is the beginning of spine. When you face the truth in stillness, you reduce its control over you in motion. The hour does not make you soft, it makes you unloaded, and an unloaded man can climb cleaner. Do not mistake interior work for a retreat from ambition. Inner work is armor. A man with interior weight cannot be bought by applause or broken by a downgrade. He can pursue aggressively without becoming possessed by pursuit. He can lose without collapsing, win without vanity, pause without dying. That is the rarest competitive edge in an age of frantic men, being calm while capable. Close with this sentence when your nervous system screams for distraction: I will not fill the void, I will face it. Repeat it until the fear dulls. Say it when you reach for the phone, when you almost numb yourself with work, when solitude threatens ego. Let the void speak before you sedate it. Everything you chase becomes fragile if it is built on a hollow interior. At some point, wealth stops hiding you from yourself. There is no earning target big enough to silence what you refuse to confront. Sit in the silence. Let the truth sting. Then build a life that does not require sedation to inhabit. When the world insists it is never enough, answer with a different victory. I'm building weight inside, not just scale outside. Breathe, strip away the noise, and meet yourself fully before you keep running. There is a final illusion in this modern chase: the belief that the finish line will grant peace. Not success itself, but the idea that peace lives after success. We tell ourselves, once I hit X, once this part of my life stabilizes, once I get out of this phase, then I will breathe, then I will live like a human again. You stack your hope on a future condition and chain your present to strain. The tragedy is simple. The man who postpones peace becomes incapable of peace. It is never enough because you trained your nervous system to live only in pursuit and never in arrival. Picture the man who finally gets there. He sells, or he exits, or he hits the number. His name is known, his calendar is clean for the first time in a decade. He takes a walk without a deadline. And then the panic arrives. The stillness feels like death. He looks for a new mountain not because he wants one, but because he cannot tolerate ground. He believed arrival would transform him, but arrival only reveals what pursuit kept quiet. He discovers he is not built for peace because he never practiced peace. Success became a costume that delayed the work. In 2025, this pattern is epidemic. Men burn through projects, businesses, relationships, even bodies, not because they love the fight, but because they fear the silence between fights. Their genius is employed to outrun their interior poverty. They hold a wrong equation: first succeed, then heal, then live. But by the time they succeed, they have become someone structurally incapable of slowing long enough to heal, and so they continue expanding what is broken. You cannot delay sanity and expect to recover it later. Peace is not a post-game trophy. It is a discipline inside the fight. The ancients confronted this with brutal clarity. Seneca said it is not that we have a short life, but that we waste much of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not wait for the ideal republic, practice justice now." Samurai trained death first so they could live days unstained by fear. Lao Tzu said, "If you are not content in the present, no future will satisfy you." These voices destroy the modern postponement fantasy. They tell you plainly, you must practice the state you want now, in miniature, under pressure, or you will not access it later under freedom. Translated to modern life, the reveal is this: you do not earn the right to live after achievement. You build the muscle to live during effort. Peace is not the absence of strain. It is composure inside strain. Contentment is not complacency. It is sovereignty over appetite. The game is not to be free from tension, but to be free within tension. To keep your humanity intact while you build, not to retrieve it from the rubble after you finish building. Here is one application you can begin immediately: the daily compression practice. Once per day, in the middle of the work cycle, not before, not after, stop for 5 deliberate minutes. No phone, no stimuli. Sit or stand, close your eyes if you wish, and ask one question: if this day never changed from what it is now, what would I still be grateful for? Do not list items. Find one single thing and sit with it for the remainder of the 5 minutes. When the mind protests with hurry, reply silently: I practice peace inside motion. Do this daily for 60 days without fail. This tiny drill rewires the deepest mistake. It trains your physiology to access presence before the conditions are perfect. It inserts gratitude upstream of arrival. When repeated, the nervous system stops equating peace with finish lines and begins equating peace with agency. A man who can access calm while unfinished is ungovernable by fear. A man who can wait without wasting is impossible to manipulate. Do not mistake this for passive surrender. This is composure as a performance enhancer. A calm man executes cleaner, sees straighter, wastes less motion, bleeds less ego into decisions, and retains the relational fabric that men often torch for gain. Peace is not the opposite of drive. It is the force that makes drive sustainable over decades. Without it, you sprint, then crash, then rebuild your ruins. With it, you climb with breath left in your lungs. Close with this line: short, declarative, repeatable. When pace increases, I refuse to die on the way to the life I am building. Say it into the teeth of urgency. Say it before the meeting, before the launch, before the deal. Train your body to hear that vow until urgency bows to it. You were told that more would fill the hole, that arrival cures unrest, that peace is the dividend of performance. But a man becomes what he rehearses. If you rehearse only hunger, you will not digest abundance. If you rehearse only motion, you will panic at stillness. Build the interior state now, inside the grind, inside the unfinished chapters, inside the noise. Let wealth come and go, but anchor your life to something that cannot be stripped. When the world insists it is never enough, you will answer with a deeper victory: I live while I build, I breathe while I hunt, and I do not postpone my humanity for any finish line. Breathe, practice peace and motion, and carry on.